Town council just passed a motion to spend $25,000 a year annually on permitting, a company just to give permits for building. What does that mean for LIEnette and John CROOK, who haven't finished their house yet? They're living in a shed with no permit. That means they're gonna have to bear the brunt of paying all of that bill because currently they're the only one attempting to build in Otter Creek. Shell wants to know, my question, what are the laws in Florida about how high a fence can be? Just a thought. Well, we've had the futon gate, we've had the dream bathroom bucket, and now we're getting the high-rise tarp fence. So in Florida, as a state, from my understanding, in Levy County, a fence under 6 foot, you do not need a permit. So for example, George and I put up brand new fences here at the ranch and at the schoolhouse. And we were told we did not need a permit. Anything over 6 feet, you have to have a permit. Now let's keep in mind, it was Russ The Suss, LIEnette and John CROOK's brand new buddy, bosom buddies. Man, they're tight. They talk every day. They're hanging out at each other's properties. It was Russ The Suss that pushed, that wanted that particular organization for permitting. And who's the one person that needs permitting right now? Well, it would be CROOK and LIEnette on their unfinished barnuminium, which is just a concrete pad with an aluminum shell that frankly, I'm impressed it's actually still standing with all the weather that we get in Florida. And then you also have this brand new fence going up as well. So George and I have driven by, we've seen the posts are over 6 foot. Yeah, they're probably gonna get busted in the aspect of no permits for their tarps. Not to mention, you cannot put plywood or tarping. You can't put a solid structure as a fence because of the weather here. If the wind takes it, it will literally take it and hurt somebody. Where Geeksney wants to know, when did Don become a financial expert? How many companies has he run? Well, here's what we do know about Don so far. We know he got busted for throwing a rock at an airplane that was taking off, or was it landing, George?
I don't remember.
One of the other. He also called the cops on himself when he was reporting that his friend was stealing his recreational pharmaceuticals. He got busted for that. We know he did not live in Otter Creek. He is an outsider. By the way, many people in Otter Creek. Otter Creek was founded from outsiders. Michigan. Yes, you heard me right. It was a Michigan logging company that made Otter Creek what it was in the center of Levy County way back when, well over 100 years ago. All outsiders. Don was an outsider, moves in. Now, to date, I don't know of any businesses Don has ever run. I just don't. I mean, I can figure he's got a side hustle with pharmaceuticals, but other than that, George, do we know anything? Does Don run any businesses? I got nothing.
He's retired.
Fun employed. Edward's got a big question, and it's got a lot of heavy weight to it. He says, are all previous council members trying to intentionally sabotage and drown this town in debt? It definitely looks that way. So when you have so much income and then you take on so much of a debt load, I mean, look at our country, for example. We are in trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. And every day, instead of tackling that debt, our government keeps adding to that debt. How long can you exist as a country? How long can you exist as a business? How long can you exist as an individual before you go belly up and bankrupt? And then that destroys your credit. That destroys your ability to purchase, to do business on a normal, everyday occasion. So it would appear as this maybe there is an underlying issue here. How can Russ the Suss, Don the Con, how can they continue to sabotage a town that they claim they love? Thomas asks, will the community center have to pay the building permit? Building community center can pay for a year's worth of safe built. That's a really good point. So maybe Russ the Suss's idea was, well, we're getting this free money, which remember, free money is never free. $900,000 will build a community center that can pay for the building permits. And that way, okay, now we got 1 year of building permits based off of the grant paying for it. But what's the end all goal after that? You have to think not just the present, but after that. And that's the thing that they don't do. They don't forecast. They don't look forward. You can see that because they've drawn the entire town back again and again and again. So even if you get 1 year based off of a community center, which I seriously doubt construction will even begin in that 1 year. Remember, building where you live may go pretty quick. Let's say up north, I could say I want to build a home, and that home could be done and completely finished with under 3 months. We've learned here down in Florida that everything is Florida time, and it is very slow, and particularly in Levy County. So the aspect of saying, I want to build and I've got money, that may take them 2-3 years to even start construction. I seriously doubt within the first year, construction would start on this community center, and that would pay for safe build. RV there yet says, Jeremy, what's up with the police department and a dog catcher? Well, currently we have no police department, nor could we ever afford a police department. Tiny town doesn't have enough residents or enough money to ever be able to afford. There's just not enough income to have a police department. And they haven't hired a dog catcher either. I much would have liked to have seen them hire a dog catcher and their own personal code enforcement. Somebody could do all of these things for the residents. So as of right now, there's absolutely nothing. So we still have strays all over the place. As a matter of fact, George and I keep driving by one that is chained to a tree. It's despicable. It is literally chained to a tree with about a 6-foot chain, and it's been there for days.
In a vacant lot.
It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And who do we call? Well, if you call Levy County, they're going to tell you, sorry, it is Otter Creek's responsibility. If you call Otter Creek, they're going to say, sorry, we don't have a person. Go ahead and call the county. So it just goes in a circle over and over and over again. Right now, we got nobody for anything. Robin wants to know, Jeremy, where's Allie the alligator? Is she still in the creek? And the answer is yes. She was just out in the creek, and she's there with a boyfriend. Huh. Our little alligator is growing up. Oh, no, that's not what Robin wants to know. They did just both go under, though, and George and I are watching for them. So, Jeremy, has anyone looked into what size building they can get for $900,000 that would be hurricane-proof? The town needs to know what the upkeep is going to be, the electric, the water, the taxes, the insurance. What's it going to cost? So, my guess is, Robin, no, nobody has. They've only gotten to the point of saying, we have to choose. Can we get sidewalks? Can we get a community center? Or do we give this money back to the government? So what they have done so far is chosen, okay, we'd like to go ahead and move forward with the community center. That's an official vote now of the town council. It's legal. They are moving forward, whether they can afford it or not. And so now the next step is, I'm sure the grant company that they work with is going to go, okay, now we got to figure out what's the permitting going to be? Where's it going to go? The land acquisition, if we need to acquire land, which again, you can't acquire land if it's not for sale. And how much square footage of a building can we actually build with this money that we have left? I think you hit it, Robin. The people need to know before the build, even though the council already said, yes, we're going to build this. The people need to know, what is it going to cost on an annual or yearly basis to upkeep this building before they move forward? Irene wants to know, Jeremy, how many times did the auditor say, you know? Well, Irene, I didn't count. As a matter of fact, I didn't even notice it. But I can tell you from public speaking that a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. And so they'll have little things such as you know, or or things along those lines, okay? And even I, in my public speaking, I'll say the reality is, or I'll say truth be told, or I'll say all right, over and over again. You don't want to do that when you publicly speak. But this gentleman was put in a stressful situation as well, because you got one person say, did you find any corruption, after he just listed all of these things that were wrong and that would actually fall under corruption. And then you got another resident saying, can you clarify this yet again as far as corruption? And he's not a public speaker. He wasn't comfortable. And once his portion was done, he ran out the door, and I don't blame him one bit. George, there's not any gators behind me in the creek, is there?
There might be a turtle or two. There's a grasshopper.
Whoa, that's a big one. Lloyd says, what were the existing attorney costs? Well, that's a good question, Lloyd, because Worm, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, he's a worm, was charging them $150 an hour. Now, he was not a litigating attorney. It means he would not go to court for them. He would only give them advice. He would gossip with Mary all day about ridiculous stuff, such as YouTubers have moved in, or they would give each other nicknames for the residents, which is where we got some of our nicknames. We just adopted them right from Worm and Mary. So $150 an hour, but you realize you can't really budget how much you're going to need somebody per hour. Now, I'm sure they had it in the budget, but here's the problem. New administration came in, right? You remember all of this? This is in previous videos. And all of a sudden, they get a $10,000+ bill for Worm. He had not given it to the town before, but all of a sudden here, you owe me over $10,000 for the past year. Why was he not billing on a monthly basis? Why was he not billing on a weekly basis? Because he's an old man flirting with an old woman, and now all of a sudden he's charging the residents for it? I mean, this is insanity. So as Russ so conveniently says, well, the budget can be amended. We can change the budget. You can change numbers in the budget all you want. You can go, okay, well, we budgeted $10,000 for an attorney. Let's change the number to $1 million. We are willing to spend $1 million for an attorney. Okay, so your expense line now says $1 million. Your income is $60,000 for the year. That's it. That's your income. It doesn't matter if you amend or adjust a budget on expenses. If you don't have the income to pay it, you're broke. How did Russ adjust the budget? Well, you learned that in the past meeting. He took $7,500 from a grant that illegally, remember, illegally he took that money, and because he couldn't take it from somewhere else without any permission whatsoever. He was robbing from Peter to pay Paul. That's not right. Don, that's corrupt. The bills and the paper. Catherine, wow, this is the cream of the crop of the citizens. How did they get voted in? Catherine, it's really easy. You got 100 citizens, okay? Well, actually, you had 71 or 72, George, registered
71 registered voters last year.
71 registered voters last year. Those are the people that are voting. Now you take that small percentage and you go, who wants the job? Nobody. Nobody in their right mind is going to want this job, okay? So what's that leave you with? The individuals that want to abuse the position. That's how you got the cream of the crop. The cream of the crop goes, I don't need this drama. I don't want this drama. This is nothing. This is not even a job that is worthy of my time or skills, things along those lines. Now add in the new rules and regulations that you have to supply all of your financial information. So there are many that guess at our financial information, George's and I online, and they're so far off, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're not even close. They are far off. That information doesn't need to be out there. It doesn't matter if you make this much, doesn't matter if you make this much, doesn't matter if you make this much, this much, this much, this much, doesn't matter. You don't want that personal information out there. Some things you want to keep private, right? There are just some things that don't need to be known. So that's going to limit the pool even more. So what if nobody says, they go, wait, we can't even get 5 members now because nobody wants their private information out there. Who in their right mind would want their private information out there? As a matter of fact, I'm shocked that every single council member did not quit right then and there and go, no way, no way. This is a major privacy issue. But they may continue to move forward, but what if they don't get 5? What if they only get 4? What if Don and Russ go, we don't care. Let the world know, because the world is going to dig into everything with Russ and Don, right? Or if another member of the community goes, okay, I don't care, let them know. Otter Creek's on the map now, but this isn't Otter Creek. This is every single place with a council in the state of Florida. To me, it's a tremendous invasion of privacy. But privacy is pretty important to me and George, because when we live our life so publicly online, the premium of our lives is privacy that we get here in the 70 acres. Dave wants to know, what would stop them from selling this building, the community center, after this all fails? To you, Jeremy, to somebody else, to Dollar General? Well, here's the major issue. if they do, let's say they got this grant money, $900,000, and then all of a sudden they build this building, and then the following year they can't pay the expenses, and they go, oh boy, this was a mistake, we can't pay for this, and then they go belly up, they have to pay the state back all the money. Okay, so now I know what you're thinking now, Dave. You're going, okay, wait, they can't even pay for the building, they have to put it up for sale, which would have to be auctioned, because you can't just, as a community piece of property, you can't just say, well, I'm going to sell to Dollar General, or I'm going to sell to Jeremy and George, or I'm going to sell to somebody else in Otter Creek. It has to go up for auction so that everybody can actually bid on it. That's what they have to do with community-owned property, okay? And so you're going, well, they can't pay for the building. How are they going to pay the money back? Well, exactly. They're going to be $900,000 in debt. So they're going to be building a building. Now they're going to potentially go bankrupt. Now they're going to have to pay back $900,000, almost $1 million of a town with 45 houses, according to Councilmember Gale, and 71 voters. You're going to owe the state back almost $1 million. Vanessa asks, did LIEnette and John CROOK try to turn up? You never said in the end. Well, I think if we didn't, we'll tell you right now. So one of the things that George and I did is there is a telephone pole and there is a street light on that telephone pole over by Town Hall. So specifically, one of the things that George and I did, we parked our vehicle under that light. It was the most lit area in the whole environment outside. The other thing that we did is we had somebody outside in another vehicle watching everything. And yes, they were armed. And no, there is nothing wrong with that, them being armed. There was an armed security outside. Doesn't matter who it was. Doesn't matter where they were. They were outside watching, and our vehicle was under the light to make sure that if anything happened whatsoever, that action could be taken. So did LIEnette and John try and show up? The answer is, shockingly, we can't believe it. We honestly cannot believe it. They did not. Although they posted and they posted and they posted that they would never stay away from another meeting, blah, 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 blah. You know, her garbage just goes on and on and on. They did not try and show up. There's always next month. Anthony wants to know, George, with the painting of the ranch house, did you make any other changes?
A little bit of changes.
I think
Bam! New couch covers.
Covers to go with the color scheme.
I haven't changed out this one yet, but the covers are right there waiting for me, and it's screaming, "Change me!"
And
Change
George
me now.
went, I'm gonna change my couch because George likes to chill here. She takes this all this stuff is from storage units. There's a switch here somewhere.
It's right here.
And there, George will come over here and play online while I edit.
I don't play
here.
online, Jeremy. It's called research.
Okay, while George researches online, I edit over here, and then we hold hands through the arms right here. That's what we do. But what Anthony really wants to know is, did Russ just bankrupt the town? In my professional opinion, which is biased, you understand that. You have a biased opinion, I have a biased opinion. We can't see the future. We wish we could. That would be great. But we can see patterns. We can see income. We can see expenses. In my opinion, yes, this town council meeting potentially just bankrupt the entire town. And now everybody wants to know what happens once it is bankrupt. Jason, he wants to know what really happens to a town, especially your town, Jeremy and George, when it does go bankrupt. All right. I don't claim to know everything that goes on with a town when it bankrupts, but I can tell you what normal people would do, right? Very first thing I would have to do is I have to decrease expenses. If I can't pay my bills, I have to decrease expenses. Largest expense of any business, any town is going to be what? People. Okay, that's normally your biggest expense.
Salaries.
So it's going to be the salary. So that means the very first thing the town of Otter Creek is going to have to do is remove Richard. No more maintenance man. Next thing they're going to have to do is remove Belinda. It's going to be no more town hall, bookkeeper, clerk, whatever you want to say in regards to those positions. You can't pay salaries. You have to remove them. Then you have to increase your income. The very first thing you do is decrease your expenses. Then you increase your income. So for me, I mean, just look around here. There's collectible stuff everywhere. Here's silver. I've got, there's a box of in there. It's in there somewhere. Look at all these things over here, over there. I mean, I've got sports. I've got $50,000 worth of Pokemon cards right there. I have to sell. I have to make money. So I have to decrease my expenses. I have to increase my income. Now for me, I can sell all my collectibles and I can generate income that way. For the town, how do they generate income? It's typically just a few ways. Number one, taxes. They have to increase taxes. Remember, this town doesn't have enough people to increase taxes to be able to pay crazy amounts of money in expenses. There's just not the populace here to do it. Okay, number two, they can generate money by tickets, speeding tickets, parking tickets. But to do that, you have to have a police force. Well, they don't have the money for the police force, okay? They could generate income by, I know some of you right now are thinking, well, they could host festivals and communities, and I get it. You're saying they can. They don't want to. These are the individuals that want to push people out. They don't want to draw people in. Don and Russ don't want more people to come in and more income to come in. They want people to stay away from Otter Creek. Now, Otter Creek could be a very flourishing, blossoming town. It's on the way to Cedar Key. Cedar Key's got it figured out. Hey, we've got some great things here for people, for families, and Otter Creek could be that as well. They just don't want to. So what happens? I believe they start filing, is it Chapter 9 with the state, potentially? Now, if they do that, the people of Otter Creek have a route to protect themselves. Because the people of Otter Creek ultimately are responsible for that bankruptcy and for those bills that are due. So the people of Otter Creek, I believe, have to vote and file. They have to file and then vote on self-protection so that the debtors can't come after the individuals of Otter Creek. Again, I'm not very well schooled in this. I'm just giving you a short abridged version of what I think happens, in my opinion, with very limited knowledge. Ogclan says, can't a portion of the community center be rented out, i.e. offices for businesses used to generate income for the town? Therefore, a lawyer... Town needs a lawyer. Therefore, a lawyer, an insurance agent, a sales team, a craftsman, a music teacher, etc., etc., etc. needs a small area to call home in which to operate. No, it can't. It can't be like that. It has to be 100% solely designated as a community center for the community. Not, oh, we're going to rent off this portion of the community center and we're going to generate income. You also have to understand there is nobody coming to Otter Creek to run an office or a business. Again, Otter Creek is pushing people out, not going, hey, please come run your business with us. We want offices. We want families. They don't want it. They don't want it. They are being pushed out, not drawn in. So no, that community center cannot be rented out to individuals for office space. Now, the other question that people keep asking is, well, couldn't you rent it out for weddings and get-togethers and family this and... Come on, I've said it again and again and again and again and again. What are people coming to Otter Creek for? Who in the world is going to run their wedding in this community center when Don's property is completely and totally trash right next to it? When Russell's creeping around it? This is not a environment where you rent out a facility, regardless if the facility is there. Now, probably the cleanest facility and the largest facility is probably the church. Now, I doubt they're even renting that out. To our knowledge, it doesn't get rented out at all. So there's a facility already that can be rented out. Don't you think they'd be renting it out if they actually wanted to come to Otter Creek? If they actually wanted their event in Otter Creek? I get it. Otter Creek's getting a little bit more exposure. The world knows about Otter Creek. The world is not looking to get married. The world is not looking to host an event. Unless you're What the Hales, and I know, we're a little weird, we're out there, and we live in Otter Creek. But they're not looking to do that in a community center. Now, if Otter Creek transitions, and they change, and they clean up, not only the people, the property, the town, then yeah, that can all change. But that has to come with an attitude change. And that comes from here with the people and here with the people. Simon says, Jeremy and George, I can understand your position. You're wanting to live in a place that's 80% right for you. It fits your business plan. It's perfect for storage. It's perfect for what you do to get to the different auctions in all the major cities. And he goes, I admire you for the fight, but is it worth your sanity? There are some days where I go, yeah, it's worth it. I get to live like this in the middle of the woods. This is the best life I could ever think of. There are other days when I go to the actual meetings and I walk out and I'm so in awe of the ignorance. I'm so in awe of the foolishness that I just witnessed. I sit there and I go, is it really truly worth it? Now, for George and I, it's always going to be worth it. There's nothing town hall is going to be able to hinder us from accomplishing that we want to accomplish, regardless of who's in the seat. I mean, Russ The Suss could get back in there. He could try stopping us as much as he wants. The town only has so much money, and we can fight it with money, and then we'll get accomplished what we want accomplished. Is it a headache? Yep, he can be a headache. But other than that, he can't win overall. So he can do illegal things. You can then take it to court, and then a judge mandates and orders and says, you have to do this. He wants to continue to put the town in those types of positions. Well, again, the town is going to be in a bankrupt position. So most of the time, it's worth it. There are some days where George and I look at each other and we go, how the hells did we end up in an Otter Creek?
There's Allie. She's on the lookout. We found her, she found us.
Old man says, guess where Russ The Suss gets his kickback money? Well, it ain't from old Allie over there. It potentially could be the good old boy system. Hey, if you sign up with us, your town pays us money, we'll give you a kickback. And that's part of corruption, right? So none of that is proved, but that is one of the theories that's been going on in my mind and other residents' minds, that he pushed so hard for a specific company that there is potential he could somehow, some way be getting kickbacks. We can't prove it yet, but time will tell. Wants to know, what in the world could a town of 100 people need with a full-time attorney? Yeah, this is how we have to flush our toilet. Remember, we cut our line to our toilet to prove to the town of Otter Creek that they were stealing money from us. And this is, yeah, I got to fill it up. This is Otter Creek water. You're going to see how green it is. Mm-hmm. So what possibly could a town of 100 need a full-time attorney for? Well, you've got it. They don't. But what they did was they just voted on a permanent full-time attorney instead of saying, I want to pay as I need you attorney. So pay as you go would have been so much smarter and so much better for the town, in my personal opinion, versus somebody you have to pay no matter what on a monthly basis. And he goes on to say as well, you know, you got this whole water system. Why don't you put your money into the water system and figuring that all out? Which Zim said we'd have the filters get up and running again soon. It's still green. It's still green. But it is a frivolous waste of money. Again, my opinion. You could look at it from the other angle and go, man, this town is so screwed up. And these council members are so screwed up that they have to have an attorney. They need any price to pay for an attorney full time just to protect the town because of the people that are there, such as Don and Russell and Mary and things that have happened. So you can go either which way, frivolous spending, or you can go it's protection and they should pay even more because of all of the foolish things they've done. Well, we're almost there, halfway there, George. Just wants to know, do you have elves for the Christmas party? We actually have quite a few elves. George, how many elves do we have so far for the Christmas party?
Total, about 35.
35 elves. Helpers.
That's not even
of Santa.
Including you and I.
Oh, okay. Well, you and I don't even know what we're going to be doing.
I'm dressing up as an elf. I don't know about you.
I have no idea what I'll be dressing up as. But
I know what you're going to be
dressing
dressing up as.
Okay, apparently she knows.
A holiday mole.
Okay, we're going with moles. This is going to be the Christmas of moles. So we do have a tremendous amount of help, which we are very thankful for. And a lot of those helpers are right here in Otter Creek. Remember, this is an Otter Creek event. We don't want it to be known as a What the Hales event, although we are a part of it. We are also residents of Otter Creek, and we're coming together with other residents and bringing Christmas back as it was taken away by Russ The Suss. Lauren wants to know, How and where is the Christmas party being advertised throughout Levy County? It's getting late. All right, Lauren, number one, let's get the late part. It's actually not getting late because everybody is focused on one thing right now, and that is Thanksgiving, not Christmas. So we've got a whole nother week, and then everybody will be thinking about Christmas. So the way we're going to promote is multiple ways. Number one, we're promoting through YouTube. You're seeing it already. People are talking. The world knows about it. But we don't want just the world to know about it. We got to have the local community know about it. We're going to advertise on local Facebook groups. That's probably the strongest and best way of getting the word out, because you, your mom, your auntie, they're all on Facebook. You know it, I know it, and they love these groups, and they get that word out, and they love to talk about that stuff as well, right, in these groups. But we also plan on making flyers to send to the local schools as well, and so that everybody knows Christmas in the Creek is coming, and you're invited. Newspaper is planning on advertising it as well, but to be honest, very few people actually read a paper anymore. Everything is online. Maria wants to know, can the new community center be built and used for town hall and get rid of the old town hall? From my understanding, from what our grant experts have shared with us in a previous meeting, which again is all under the playlist of Otter Creek, that those two things could not be mixed. That legal entities such as town hall could not be mixed with community entities such as the recreational, or
so no governmental officials.
No government officials within that facility, if I remember correctly. So now I already know what all the comments are going to be. Well, where I live, we have, that's great. Where you live, you probably were taxed and you paid for it and they use it for what they want it for. They're getting a grant, and with that grant from the state comes all of these restrictions, what they can do, which is very limited, extremely limited, and what they can't do, which is pages and pages and pages and pages of. So I don't believe they can mix the two together. It has to be designated specifically for the community, not anything that has legal government in it. User, lots of letters and lots of numbers, says, could the reason why Don is working with Russ is simply because Russell has something he's holding over Don's head? Well, we've explored that theory before, and the only thing we could find was Don's criminal background, which isn't exactly something that Don tries to hide. He's very, very open about what he has done and what he does recreationally now, whereas before it was illegal. So laws changed, that's great. When he did it, it was illegal. Now, not illegal. That's okay. But remember, when it was illegal, it was illegal. I get laws change. So what could Russ possibly be holding over his head? And remember, Russell didn't want Don in any of these meetings because Don was doing the exact same thing to Russell. So for us to now say, okay, Russ has something over Don's head, Don was acting the same way to Russell. Whereas Russell wanted Mary to lock him out of town hall even. We've seen that in one of the emails. At this point, I'm not convinced Russell has anything over Don. What I am convinced is Don just doesn't want to clean his mess up. And he doesn't want somebody on the council to come in and say, you got to clean the junk up. And that's probably what most of these people are thinking, because birds of a feather flock together, right? That's normal. You see cities, I mean, you've seen it in your own places. You go, wait, if you go past those tracks, that's bad news over there. That's a bad part of town. Now, over there, oh man, that's where all the rich people live over there, right? You've seen that, right? So Otter Creek is a lot of people that have hoarded a lot of things, and for one reason or another don't want to let go of them. And they're not yard ornaments, they're just being deteriorated and destroyed. This place could be so beautiful just by picking up garbage. And let me emphasize, an individual that doesn't live in Otter Creek attempting to pick up garbage on people's property, which is private property, is illegal. It's trespassing. Eddie wants to know, is it possible that Russ The Suss was silently harassing Gail in some way during the meeting? Russ The Suss just being there harasses me, so anything is possible. Karen's got a good question. She says, Jeremy, do you think Don was trying to tip you off, was trying to let you know that Russ is using his recordings of the meeting to manipulate recordings for bad purposes? He stated it could be stopped and complete, wanted the council to provide the recording. I'm just wondering. I don't think Don is ever going to cue me off into anything or tip me off on anything. Don has been very clear that he, as a representative on that town council, does not represent me. He has said that in a meeting. He's also said that I'm an outsider that hijacks the meeting, when this is a man who goes over the same thing again and again and again and again for 30, 45 minutes in a meeting. I mean, could you imagine how short these meetings would be if Don just listened and comprehended and acted on that comprehension? So I don't think he's trying to tip me off onto anything. Now, I do think that Russell is recording, and is recording for one reason, because LIEnette and John CROOK tried to align themselves with another foolish individual. Remember, birds of a feather flock together. You've seen all the ducks together. You see the chickens together. Well, fools often congregate together. So LIEnette and John CROOK congregated with another fool who did their demise as well. But that fool is still talking with Russ The Suss. Well, that fool has incriminated Russ The Suss to the point where now they have to get those recordings from Russell. So Russell, as a council member, he can't just take a personal recording. He is a council member. It must stay there in town hall. He self-incriminated himself. So is he stopping and starting? I don't know. But me, as going in, I can stop and start, and I can record what I want to record. I can remove what I want to remove. That's different. I'm not a council member. Therefore, that recording doesn't have ownership within the office or the town hall structure of the members there. So my recordings are private use. I'm a private individual. His recordings are owned. Because he is a council member, they are owned, and they may not be removed from the building, which he has done. Yeah, you think they need a lawyer? You think Russell's pushing for a lawyer? Because he knows this is just the beginning of all the garbage he's done, and all the more he's gotten himself in trouble for. But Don wasn't trying to tip me off. If anything, Don would want to tick me off. Mandy wants to know, can the plumber, meaning Russ The Suss, be sued for inadequate repairs by the town? He charged enough. Is there 3 quotes in the minutes where they voted approving that plumber? All I ever heard, water's doing good, so pay the bills, meeting closed. And that's all you ever did hear from Russ The Suss. Now here's the thing with lawsuits. You can sue anyone for pretty much anything. Literally, you can do that. But the first thing you have to do is find a lawyer that'll actually take that on. There are very, very few lawyers that will jeopardize their position within the system taking on frivolous or ridiculous lawsuits. But there are a handful that just don't care. They'll just take your money no matter what. So you can sue anyone for anything. Remember, it costs money though. So you have to find somebody who will represent you. Then you have to have the money to pay them. And a lot of that is up front. And that's a tremendous amount of money. With the lawsuits we have going on right now, retainer fees, easily, there's $20,000 out in retainer fees right now in regards to the money for the lawsuits, or for, well, let's just say the civil protection orders for George and I, that was $5,000. Immediate, up front. We had to retain the lawyer, and that was $5,000 just to go to court against LIEnette and John CROOK and get the civil protection orders. $5,000, just like that. Lynn says, didn't the council do a budget for the year? Well, yeah, that was just passed in September, I believe. And Russell's response again is, we can always amend the budget. Again, I've emphasized this over and over again. It doesn't matter how many times you change numbers on a piece of paper. If you don't have the money to pay a bill, you're broke. Dick Daniels says, the lady secretary said they don't have a permitting office. So how can they charge people for building permits? Okay, let me try and explain this to you. You don't have an insurance company. You buy insurance. I don't have a CPA company. I buy or I hire a CPA. So there are a lot of things you and I don't have, Dick Daniels. And so we purchase those things. And that's what the town of Otter Creek is doing. They're purchasing a permitting business, in essence, just like I would a CPA, just like I would a insurance policy. I'm purchasing that. The town is purchasing permitting through Safe Build. So they had a couple different options, and it passed with Safe Build. All permitting will go and flow through that company now. It's a third party, so the town has hired a third party to take care of all of those responsibilities for them. Pamela says, Jeremy, are you concerned about your investments of property in Otter Creek? Guess it doesn't really matter if you don't plan to sell. So there is that aspect, Pamela, that I have no intentions of selling whatsoever. Now, George and I have talked, because there's a couple things. You have to look at Otter Creek, and you have to look at the state of Florida like you look at a Monopoly board. Okay, you're playing Monopoly with your friends. The whole goal is real estate, all right? The person who owns the most real estate makes the most money. That is a life lesson right there. Real estate is the way to make the most amount of money in the United States. In my personal opinion, that or your online businesses have exploded as well. Cryptocurrency, if you got in early, things along those lines. But real estate has been tried and true, okay? And so in the state of Florida, there's one area that has not been developed yet, and everything else in Florida has been developed. Well, we're in it. We're in the beginning before it gets developed. So what's going to be coming? Well, we're going to have fresh water from Bronson. We're going to have sewer hookups. That's pretty huge. And the toll road potentially coming through. So the investment of property that we have, while there may be those such as Don the Cons and Russ the Susses, Mary Marys that are undesirable in the area, they can't hold on to that forever. The change is coming. And it will change, and it will grow. You cannot stop growth. The only way to stop growth is death. You have two options, grow or die. If you're not growing, you are dead. And that's what happens with towns and businesses and organizations and people. So I'm not concerned about the investment in property because I have no intentions of selling. My investment in property will continue to grow as development continues to grow in this area. As a matter of fact, put very little amount of money, which when I paid for the property, for example, this property right here, when I paid for it, I overpaid. Okay, George and I paid more per acre than was currently going for, and we knew we overpaid. Now, this property at a bare minimum has doubled for what I paid for it. That's at a bare minimum. It's doubled in its actual, what it would sell for today. Now, George and I have talked with all the expansion coming through. Is there something that we would do to where we would sell? And we have an amount, but it's a crazy amount. So the state would have to come in and go, hey, we really want your property. We want to put in, solar panel farm. And I would go, this is the amount. And you go, well, eminent domain, they can take it. No, it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of red tape before eminent domain comes in, and you have to give it a going rate as well. But they're not going to come in and take this piece of property under eminent domain. There is a price that we have. And you're going, okay, well, if you get that price, then what are you going to do with that money? Well, we're going to invest in more property in this same area, not Otter Creek. Family wants to know, why not put Russ and Don next to each other during the meetings? That could be an explosive mix right there, and probably extremely entertaining as well for everyone.
They used to sit next to each other.
Oh, yeah, they did? Oh, well, yeah, well, they were good buddies in the meetings when Russ was mayor and Don would just complain the entire time. That would be interesting to see that dynamic and mix. Maybe there'll be a Christmas miracle. Maybe that will happen in December's meeting. Jeanne. At least I think that's the name. I think it's Jeanne.
Just Jean.
You think it's Jean? Oh, Jeanette. Jean Netterman.
Jeanette. Or Jeanette.
No, it's definitely not Jeanette. It's either Jeanne. I think it's Jeanne. I'm going with Jeanne.
Let's go with Jeanne.
Says, hello, Jeremy and George. Will Patience and Christian, along with Baby Pepper, be making an appearance for the Christmas in the Creek? I know where they're at right now. They're on vacation for the week. I don't know 100% for sure if they'll be here for Christmas in the Creek. I do know if Baby Pepper shows up and all kinds of Baby Pepper's fans bring Christmas gifts for her, there's no way Christian and Patience are going to be able to get those back on an airplane. We have to have a whole nother trailer, George, just to get everything back for Baby Pepper.
You're probably right.
So let's not disclose whether Baby Pepper will be here for Christmas in the Creek or not. Michael wants to know, why hasn't City Council ever talked about in the meeting the lawsuit? Well, Michael, they have multiple times. And we go to court this month. It was supposed to be in October. George and I didn't make it here in time, so we had to file for continuation, or I forget exactly what our lawyer did. But At any rate, it's in December. Everything should be finalized with that records request lawsuit. And then we decide where we want to go from there, especially with those 6,000 emails. Delta asks a good question. Jeremy, can they reverse what they did to bankrupt the town? Can you fire the plumber? Can you fire the attorney? So Delta, they can reverse it at the next month. So say this past month they agreed, oh, we're going this direction. We're doing this. They can reverse those decisions. There could be a motion made. Let's fire this attorney. Let's hire another attorney. That can be on a month basis. If somebody brings that motions, it's then seconded, and then there has to be what's called a quorum, which means majority. Out of the 5, at least 3 people have to vote and say, yes, let's reverse that. Let's go with somebody else. So all of their decisions can be overturned in a following meeting. I get what you're thinking already. What about that community center? How are you going to overturn that? How are you going to reverse that once you're in the process? Okay, there are some decisions. Once you go, you go. There's no turning back. And you're going to live out either the blessings or the consequences of those decisions. Mary wants to know. One question. Were all the people at the meeting this time actually residents of Otter Creek? I would say there was a handful of residents there, and there were spectators or out-of-towners. I mean, even Mr. Fuller, he does not live in Otter Creek. You've got people filming there that do not live in Otter Creek. They have no vested interest in Otter Creek. They have no taxes paying into Otter Creek, even though they have made previous videos stating that they did. They were a grown adult. I pay taxes for these roads when they don't, because they don't live in Otter Creek. They have no vote. They have no say, no nothing. All they do is ride coattails. Aaron wants to know, will you be having a toy drive through Amazon? It would be easier for folks who can't get to the post office, lack of transportation. Well, you can see almost every single one of these packages prepped for this Sunday Night Live. These packages mostly came through Amazon. So you can choose anything you want and ship it from Amazon to us here at our P.O. Box for Christmas in the Creek. Our P.O. Box here is, well, you just go, what the Hales, P.O. Box 78, and that's in Otter Creek, Florida, O-T-T-E-R. Don't get that confused with O-D-D-E-R. And then the zip code is 32683. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put that address in the pinned comment for anybody else who wants to send a gift for Christmas in the Creek.